Unit 3.6 The Concert by Shanta Rao. Introduction. Shanta Rao, 1930 to 2007, was a notable, meaning famous, dancer from India. She was an exponent of Bharatnatyam and also studied Kathakali and Kuchipudi. She was a recipient of Padma Shri and Sangeet Natak Academy Award and Kalidas Sanman for music, dance and drama. This is a true story, but all the names except Pandit Ravi Shankar's and Ustad Allah Rakha's have been changed. This is a story about a middle-class family from Gaganpur which comes to Mumbai for the treatment of 15-year-old Anant. The doctors had given up hope of his cure. Before being diagnosed with a deadly disease, Anant was a bright young boy, the best table tennis player and the fastest runner in school. He and his sister Smita were learning to play the sitar. While in Mumbai for his treatment, his sister reads about the performance of Pandit Ravi Shankar in Shanmukhanand Hall the next day. Smita is very upset that Anant can't attend it. Nevertheless, she goes for the performance with a secret plan in her mind. Let's learn the secret through the lesson. Module 1. One morning, in a small apartment in Bombay, a girl of about 16 looked up from the newspaper and said excitedly, "Pandit Ravi Shankar's, a classical sitar maestro, playing tomorrow at the Shanmukhananda auditorium." "Shh, shh," said her mother, pointing to the figure, here referring to the boy, Anant, sleeping on the bed. "You'll wake him up. You know he needs all the sleep and rest he can get." But the boy on the bed was not asleep. "Pandit Ravi Shankar?" he said. "Pandit Ravi Shankar, the sitar maestro?" He raised himself up on his elbows for 1 second, then fell back, but his eyes were shining. "We mustn't miss the chance," he said. I've always wanted to hear him and see him. Lie down, son, lie down." His mother sprang up to his side. "He actually raised himself up without help," she murmured, meaning quietly spoken words, with a catch in her throat, meaning choked voice, about to cry, and her eyes turned to the idols on a corner shelf. The prayer which she uttered endlessly, meaning to cure her son, came unbidden, meaning naturally, to her lips. Explanation. One day, while the family of Anant was still in Mumbai, Smita loudly exclaimed that Pandit Ravi Shankar was going to perform at the Shanmukhananda Hall the next day. Since she was learning sitar, she was obviously excited to see the great sitar player perform live. But her mother told her to keep quiet as Anant was sleeping and she didn't want to disturb him. Anant was not asleep and he quickly tried to get up and said that he wanted to go for the show. His mother tried to put him back to sleep and started uttering her usual prayers to God to cure him. Module 2. "I must hear him and see him," the boy repeated. "It's the chance of a lifetime." Then he began to cough and gasp for breath, meaning fight for breath, and had to be given oxygen from the cylinder that stood under the bed. But his large eyes were fixed on his sister. Smita bit her lip in self-reproach, meaning feeling of guilt. She had been so excited at seeing the announcement that she had not remembered that her brother was very ill. She had seen how the doctors had shaken their heads gravely, meaning seriously, and spoken words that neither she nor even her parents could understand. But somewhere deep inside Smita had known the frightening truth, that Anant was going to die. The word cancer had hung in the air. Her brother was dying of cancer, even though she pretended that all would be well and they would return together, a small family of 4, to their home in Gaganpur. And he was only 15 and the best table tennis player in the school and the fastest runner. He was learning to play the sitar. They were both taking sitar lessons, but Anant was better than her as in many other things. He was already able to compose his own tunes to the astonishment of their guru. Then cancer had struck and they had come to Bombay so that he could be treated at the cancer hospital in the city. Whenever they came to Bombay, they stayed with Aunt Sushila. Her apartment was not big, but there was always room for them. They had come with high hopes in the miracles of modern science, They told themselves that Anant would be cured at the hospital and he would again walk and run and even take part in the forthcoming table tennis tournament. And he would play the sitar, perhaps be a great sitarist one day. But his condition grew worse with each passing day, and the doctors at the cancer hospital said, "Take him home. Give him the thing he likes." Indulge, meaning to enjoy the pleasure of something. Him. And they knew that the boy had not many days to live. But they did not voice their fears. They laughed and smiled and talked and surrounded Anant with whatever made him happy. They fulfilled his every need and gave him whatever he asked for. And now he was asking to go to the concert. The chance of a lifetime, he was saying. Explanation. Anant kept on insisting that he wanted to go for the performance, and then he was breathless, but he kept looking at his sister as if to plead to her to take him for the performance. Smita was feeling guilty for whatever happened, but she did it unintentionally. She remembers how the doctors had given up hope and she knew that her brother was going to die. She then remembers how she pretended in front of him that he would be fine and their family would return to Gaganpur, their hometown. Anant was only 15 and had been the best table tennis player and a great athlete. They both were learning to play sitar, but suddenly he was diagnosed with cancer and they had come to Mumbai for his treatment, where they stayed with their aunt Sushila, who always welcomed them in her small apartment. They had come with a lot of hopes in the miracles of science and believed that Anant will be cured. But this condition deteriorated and the doctors told them to take him home as he had a few days to live. They tried to keep Anant happy and now he wanted to go to the concert, which was the chance of a lifetime for him. Module 3. When you are better, his mother said. This is not the last time they're going to play. Smita stood at the window looking at the traffic, her eyes wet with tears. Her mother whispered, "But you, Smita, you must go. Your father will take you." When she was alone with Aunt Sushila, Smita cried out in a choked voice, "No, how can I? We've always done things together, Anant and I." "A walk in the park might make you feel better," said Aunt Sushila, and Smita was grateful for her suggestion. In the park, people were walking, running, playing ball, doing yogic exercises, feeding the ducks and eating roasted gram and peanuts. Smita felt alone in their midst. She was lost in her thoughts. Suddenly, a daring thought came to her and she hurried home and said to herself, "Why not? There's no harm in trying it. It would be nice to go to the concert. I don't know when we'll get another opportunity to hear Pandit Ravi Shankar," she said to her mother later, and her father agreed to get the tickets. The next day, as Smita and her father were leaving for the concert, her brother smiled and said, "Enjoy yourself," though the words came out in painful gasps. "Lucky you." Explanation. Anant's mother tried to console him by saying that he could definitely go later when he would be better. Smita was crying, but her mother insisted that she should go with her father for the concert. Later she spoke to Aunt Sushila, telling her how the brother and sister had done things together. Her aunt suggested her to go for a walk, and she agreed. The park was crowded with people doing different activities, but Smita was only thinking about her brother and his wish. Suddenly, an idea struck her and she rushed home. She agreed to go to the concert and her father arranged for the tickets. The next day, while they were leaving, Anant smiled and told Smita to enjoy herself and said that she was lucky that she could go. Module 4. Sitting beside her father in the gallery, Smita heard as in a dream the thundering welcome the audience gave the great master. Then the first notes came over the air and Smita felt as if the gates of a land of enchantment, meaning fascination, and wonder, meaning amazement, were opening. Spellbound, meaning awestruck, fascinated. She listened to the unfolding ragas, the slow plaintive notes, meaning the slow sad tunes, the first twinkling ones, meaning the fast happy tunes. But all the while the plan she had decided on the evening before remained firmly in her mind. The chance of a lifetime! She heard Anand's voice in every beat of the tabla. The concert came to an end. The audience gave the artists a standing ovation. A large mustachioed, having a long mustache man made a long, boring speech. Then came the presentation of bouquets. Then more applause and the curtain came down. The people began to move towards the exits. Now was the time. Smitha wriggled her way through the crowds towards the stage. Then she went up the steps that led to the wings, her heart beating loudly. In the wings, a small crowd had gathered to talk about the evening concert, to help carry bouquets and teacups and instruments. Explanation. Smitha felt it was like a dream come true to see the maestro live in concert. She was totally fascinated, yet all the time she thought about her brother and his words, the chance of a lifetime, and she was even more firm in her plan. After the concert ended, a man with a large mustache gave a boring speech, and bouquets were presented to the celebrities, and after a huge applause, the people started leaving the hall. Smitha now had to implement her plan. She went up the steps that led to the side of the stage, meaning wings, where people had gathered to talk and clear the stage. Module 5. He was there, standing with the man who played the tabla for him, the great wizard, meaning expert of music, Ustad Allah Rakha. Her knees felt weak, her tongue dry, but she went up and standing before them, her hands folded. "Oh, sir," she burst out. "Yes?" he asked questioningly but kindly. And her story came pouring out, the story of her brother who lay sick at home and of how he longed to hear him and the Ustad play. "Will you come to Aunt Sushila's house and play for him?" she asked at the end, breathlessly. "Please," she begged, "please come." "Little girl," said the mustachioed man who had made the long speech, "Pandit ji is a busy man. You must not bother him with such requests." But Pandit Ravi Shankar smiled and motioned, meaning signalled, him to be quiet. He turned to Ustad Sahib and said, "What shall we do, Ustad Sahib?" The Ustad moved the wad of pan from one cheek to another. "Tomorrow morning we perform for the boy, yes?" he said. "Yes," Panditji replied. "It's settled then." It was a very excited Smitha who came home late that night. Anant was awake, breathing the oxygen from the cylinder. Did you hear him?" he whispered. "I did," she replied. "And I spoke to him, and he'll come tomorrow morning with the tabla ustad, and they'll play for you." And the following morning, Aunt Sushila's neighbors saw two men get out of a taxi which pulled up outside their block. They could not believe their eyes. "Is it? It's not possible," they said. Pandit Ravi Shankar and Ustad Allah Rakha went up the wooden staircase and knocked softly on the door of Aunt Sushila's apartment. They went in, sat down on the divan by the window, and played for the boy, surrounding him with a great and beautiful happiness as life went out of him gently, very gently. Explanation. Smitha had gone backstage where she saw the two great musicians, Pandit Ravi Shankar, the sitar maestro, and Ustad Allah Rakha, the wizard who played the tabla for Pandit Ravi Shankar. She was nervous, but courageously approached them and told them about her brother who longed to hear the two maestros perform. She pleaded them to come to her aunt's house and play for him. The man who had given the speech tried to tell Smitha that it was not possible to do so, but Panditji told him to be quiet and asked Ustad Allah Rakha, who immediately agreed to perform for the boy. When Smitha reached home, Anand asked her about the concert. Smitha told him that he would be able to see them perform the next morning. As promised, both the maestros went to Aunt Sushila's apartment and played for the boy. Anant was filled with happiness and he gently passed away. So he did see the concert, which truly was the chance of his lifetime.